All right. All right. Many moons ago, when I was a young man, 2 moons ago, aka like probably 8 years ago, I discovered this record label called Sahel Sounds that has it's run by a man named Christopher Kirkley, and in those past 8 years, I think Sahel Sounds has become kind of a flagship in African music, at least in terms of a Western audience. And today we're going to go interview Christopher Kirkley along with the band that he's touring with, Etran de L'Aïr. I think I'm saying that right. I'm probably not. But yeah, I'm really excited. And you have anything you want to say, Mario?
No, I'm excited to just listen to some great music that we don't get to listen to every day. Obviously, we get to listen to it because of streaming services, but to see it in person, I think that's going to be hella dope. I'm excited. Do you want to shout out Outpatient?
Oh, yeah.
Shout out Outpatient. We'll let Thomas take that.
Hey, dude, shout out to Matt at Outpatient. I literally would not be here without him. I'm rocking the merch today. Although I did find this shirt at a thrift store, so maybe it's more washed than I thought.
Hey, don't thrift local merch that you buy, dude. That's kind of fucked up in my opinion. Keep it forever. You know, if you buy one of my band shirts or we end up having Modern Girl Media merch, don't thrift. Don't put that in the thrift. Yeah. Maybe in 40 years, though. It'll be worse on throw in the little goodie. But yeah, I'm excited out here. Doors open up at 7:30.
Yeah.
What do you want to do? What do you think your plan is? What's a little rundown we could give the audience right now? What do you think?
We're just gonna. Well, we were just listening to them in sound check. They sounded pretty fuego, and we're just gonna go try and talk to them before they go on. So it's gonna be a pretty casual conversation, hopefully. We are going to be rocking the one mic setup, but we'll make it work. You know, we've made it work before. Yeah. There's no problem. All right. Let's get it.
Modern Girl forever. Oh. I'm 13.
They didn't check that. We are here, we're live with Etran de L'Aïr, right? Okay, just want to make sure I'm saying it right. It's a really huge honor to be speaking to you guys. And so this is kind of maybe a silly question, but I just wanted to ask about, to kick it off, about your guys' song that you had in Fortnite. Because you did have a song in Fortnite, right? And I just wanted to ask, like, the process of that. Do you guys even feel like how you guys feel about it at all? Because I am curious to know.
Donc, c'est un grand plaisir pour faire l'interview avec vous aujourd'hui. Son première question, il voulait demander. Bon, tu sais, votre musique, il est entré dans le jeu, la vidéo. Avec la voiture, la petite Fortnite. Tu as vu le clip, comme on mettra le morceau de Tubouk dans cette jeu. Et je voulais d'abord savoir qu'est-ce que tu penses de ça.
Je n'ai pas bien compris la question.
Ah. Est-ce que tu connais le on est mettre le morceau Tubouk dans le jeu. Ouais. Fortnite. Ouais.
Ça se regarde dans les petites vidéos.
Pas dans la petite vidéo. On a sorti ça dans un jeu qui les gens. Un jouet, c'est ça. Tu te souviens de ça? Avec la voiture, la vidéo avec la voiture qui part. Et je voulais savoir qu'est-ce que tu penses avec ça, pour avoir ton musique dans un jouet.
Oui, c'est bon. C'est une promo pour nous. Et puis c'est parti dans d'anciennes choses, quoi. Les choses qui sont déjà passées.
He said, so for him, it was a big promotion to have it in there, and it was a pleasure for him to have it in something historic like that. I think maybe I can also add on to this.
Yeah.
So the Fortnite thing came about with Bandcamp. Bandcamp had a connection to Fortnite and had a radio inside Fortnite. And one of Ben, who was working with the label at the time, was able to get in touch with the editor who made that placement. And it was kind of surreal to have the song in Fortnite. I think I had never played Fortnite. I didn't really know anybody except my nephews who did. And but what we did find out afterwards is a lot of people were coming to the concerts who would actually, would come up to the merch table and say like, yo, we were listening to you in Fortnite and it's our favorite song and that's how we discovered you. And I think that was a really interesting way to find new listeners too. It was a real unexpected opportunity to reach people.
Yeah, I mean, speaking personally, I thought it was a joke when I saw, when you guys announced it. I thought it was just because it feels like there's no overlap between people who are following Sahel Sounds or anything and people who are playing the game. It just doesn't seem like two demographics that overlap very much. And so I just thought it was, I'm assuming based on the responses, it's not like they're huge Fortnite fans or anything, or they care about it really. And it's more about just getting the platform. But I know that was a silly question, kind of. I just really was curious about it because, I don't know. Living in America, it's kind of hard to avoid it. And so I thought it was interesting. But anyways, I wanted to ask them about any, because I know with Mdu, he really likes Prince and stuff, right? He's somebody that you worked with, and his Prince influence was pretty notable, correct? Yeah. I'm just trying to basically connect dots, but so I just wanted to ask them about any influences they have from America or something, or any UK that they would say shows up in their music.
Ok, donc lui, il voulait demander c'est quoi les influences dans votre musique? Est-ce que c'est la musique occidentale, le rocker, par exemple, que vous écoutez, ou les artistes des autres pays? C'est qui les artistes qui vous écoutez, qui influencent dans votre musique?
Des musiques qu'on écoute parfois, ce sont des musiques de Abdallah Mbadougou, de Tina Riwen, de Sangaré de Mali et Ali Farka aussi. Qu'on a beaucoup écouté ça. Il y a certains soukous congolais aussi. Ouais.
The music that we most have listened to coming up was the late Abdallah Mbadougou, Tinarwin, the Malian singer Omo Sangare, and also Sukus from Zaire.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Et pour la point concernant les artistes occidentaux, est-ce qu'il y a des artistes occidentaux vous écoutez avant? Ou vous connaissez même pas?
Moi, j'écoute la musique reggae et j'écoute les soukous aussi.
I listened to some reggae before and soukous.
Okay. But that's not necessarily, he's not necessarily saying that that's an influence there or anything.
No, definitely influenced by soukous. You hear a lot of that in their music. But I think one of the things interesting is that while you might hear a certain connection to Western music or certain guitar music from, the West, quote unquote, they actually didn't grow up listening to any Western music. No Jimi Hendrix or.
It's like I'm not necessarily looking for them to like tell me how much they love like CCR or whatever. You know, I'm just curious. But I was also going to ask. So it kind of feels like their profile is, you know, upped in the past couple years with the past couple albums. And I was curious about if there's any difference in how they're kind of like the public reception of them in, is it Agadez? Yeah. I'm just curious about if anything's changed there.
Bon, ça c'est quelque chose que tu peux répondre bien, je pense. C'est une bonne question. Il est demandé dans les dernières quelques années, votre nom il est vraiment monté en États-Unis, donc en Europe aussi. Tu vois, votre public il est grandé chaque année, il est devenu plus grand. Et c'est ça. Tu vois, il a fait quel effet là-bas en Agadez? Le fait que vous tournez et tout ça, c'est quoi l'effet qu'il est pour vous là-bas en Agadez? C'est qui va répondre?
Puis il a fait un grand effet. Il a fait un grand effet là-bas à Agadez. Parce que d'autres musiques aussi est grandi, il est écouté aussi un peu partout dans le monde. Donc c'est un plaisir pour nous, vraiment. Et pour d'autres populations aussi.
Parce qu'on fait la promotion de notre culture et la promotion de notre village aussi. Parce que à travers nos chansons, donc beaucoup de gens vont entendre Agadez et au fil du temps, ils vont connaître c'est quoi Agadez. Tu vois. Donc c'est à travers ces chants qu'on passe ces messages.
So they're saying for them the biggest response has been that people back home they're being able to share their culture with the world. So there's a sort of pride for people that they're knowing throughout the world the name Agadez and they're knowing about the region. Yeah. Tu peux parler pourtant comment il est fait pour vous, comme est-ce que les gens maintenant ils paient plus dans le mariage, est-ce que vous êtes en plus de main dans le mariage, est-ce que c'est changé quelque chose pour vous, est-ce que vous amenez le matériel là-bas, c'est quoi le changement, je voulais demander principalement, c'est quoi le changement qui...
En tout cas, on a eu des changements, on a eu beaucoup de changements concernant les matériels et puis notre relation avec les gens aussi, ça augmente, ça évolue vraiment. Ça fait plaisir pour nous et pour tout le monde là-bas chez nous aussi.
À chaque fois, il y a des nouvelles fans qui apparaissent à Agadez. Parce que des fois, avant les gens, il y a beaucoup de gens qui ne connaissent pas la musique. Mais avec l'évolution, le fait qu'on a des bons matériels, tu vois, le fait que les gens nous voient à chaque fois partir en occidental, faire des tournées. Donc ça aussi, ça a beaucoup augmenté la valeur du groupe. Tu vois, donc,
It also raises the value of the group for people back home to see them constantly traveling, constantly going on tour. They're bringing home a lot of newer amps and newer materials, so they have a lot better equipment. So when they play in a wedding, they have a better sound, and also they just are in more demand now because they're like a touring act that, they're sharing videos and yeah.
They still do weddings?
Oh, il demande si tu fais toujours le mariage là-bas.
Oui, bien sûr. Bien sûr.
La plupart des cérémonies,
c'est les mariages.
La plupart des soirées qu'on fait là-bas, la plupart, c'est les mariages.
Most of all of our performances back in Agadez are weddings.
That's interesting because I was going to ask them because they've been playing since like the 90s, correct?
Well, not exactly. So their older brother started. Their two older brothers started the group in '95, and then over time they've integrated.
So the band's kind of like a rotated.
It is, yeah, and Abindi was the first to start playing in the band, and then after that his brothers joined, and then currently, his son is actually playing music too, and his nephew are also like starting to play. They're 18 and 20 years old, and we'll be bringing them on tour in the future, like upcoming tours too. Yeah. Once they're old enough to get into a club.
Yeah. So you guys only recently started touring with the album Number One, right? Or no?
If we first started touring with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, la première tournée c'était avec le numéro 1 or c'est avec Agadez? No, the first tour was with the second album, Agadez.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask about the transition from being like a band that's primarily playing weddings and everything to all of a sudden, being on the road, because I'm assuming that's not such a normal thing for them. After having the band for so long, how that shift was and like how it is basically becoming a touring band.
Bon, c'est une question. Comment c'est changé pour vous, ou qu'est-ce que vous pensez de la vie de tournée? Parce que la tournée, c'est pas comme chez vous, le mariage. Pour devenir un groupe qui fait la tournée, c'est une autre vie. Et c'est comment pour vous, si tu voulais parler un peu de ça?
La vie de la tournée, c'est pas pareil avec les mariages là-bas chez nous. Parce que là-bas chez nous, on joue juste pour des jours, des cérémonies pour des jours. Donc ici c'est toujours c'est presque un mois ou bien 2 mois de voyages, 2 mois de balances, 2 mois de voilà.
Back home, when we play, it's changed a lot, because back home when we play for 2 days. A marriage ceremony is a 2-day event, and then we rest. But when we go on tour, it's for 1 month, every day playing, every day sound check, every day travel, and it's very different from playing in a wedding.
So during the wedding ceremonies, how many hours a day are you guys playing?
Pendant le mariage, chaque jour tu joues combien de temps?
Pendant le mariage, chaque jour on joue de 3h à 4h de temps. Mais c'est pas pareil parce que là-bas déjà on est chez nous. Tu joues, tu te casses à la maison. Mais ici c'est toujours, chaque jour tu as un voyage. Et il n'y a pas les voyages aussi, il y a...
Mais c'est pas pareil les concerts ici. Ici les plus grands concerts c'est 1h15, tu vois, 1h30. Nous là-bas chez nous les concerts ça dure 3h, 4h.
So for us, it's in a wedding we could play for 3 or 4 hours, but it's not like that. It's not like touring, because here you play only maybe an hour and 15 minutes, but you don't get to go home afterwards. Yeah. You don't get to go to your house. You don't get to sleep in your bed. You don't get to see your family. So it's different.
Yeah. Okay. That's very interesting to me. I didn't know that about the weddings, but I honestly don't think I have many more questions. But if you could just tell them I really, really appreciate the privilege of speaking to them and, them giving me the time.
Il n'y a pas encore de question, mais il voulait juste dire vraiment merci beaucoup. C'est un grand honneur pour lui pour parler avec vous, et merci vraiment pour le temps pour parler avec lui.
Merci à lui, merci bien.
Est-ce que chaque personne peut dire son nom et qu'est-ce qu'il lui il joue.
Oui, bien, moi, je m'appelle Moussa Ebra, donc je joue la guitare principale.
Moi, je m'appelle Abdraman Ibrahim. Je me nomme Al-Amin. Je joue la guitare solo et la guitare basse. Je me présente Abdullah Ibrahim, Etran de L'Aïr, Agadez, Niger. Donc moi, je joue la guitare, je fais l'accompagnement, je chante et je fais la basse aussi.
Moi, je m'appelle Al-Rabid Rabdan. Je joue les batteries.
Good.
We'll translate that.
Yeah, we'll
put the subtitles for that. All right. Okay. Thank you guys. I mean, that's going to be it for the band. So, merci. Thank you. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. Thank you, man. Thank you. We're here one-on-one with Christopher Kirkley, founder of Sahel Sounds. And I mean, I guess we just talked to the band, but I guess I'll ask you now how you're doing, how the tour's going and everything.
Yeah, thanks. Tour's going pretty well. It's been great to get back on the road with these guys and kind of see them back, like kick into gear, but also like to see all the people at the shows, like seeing their faces and people introduce like people I know, but also just new people like coming out and finding their sound, you know, because it's really I find this band, one of the great things about them is it's sometimes it can be hard to get people like in that door to come to a show for a band they don't know. But like once somebody hears this band, they're a fan, you know, because they just have such a, intoxicating sound that it doesn't take a lot. Like just listen to them once and you'll be like a forever fan.
The live energy is crazy. The live energy is definitely one of the best parts about them. I mean, obviously hearing the band. I mean, I already liked, especially Agadez is my favorite from them. But even before I saw them live, I loved that album. But if you wouldn't mind, I wanted to talk. I had some questions for you that are questions I've had for a long time, honestly, ever since I kind of figured out what you have going on here. I'm really curious about just your whole, like the whole idea behind Sahel Sounds. From what I understand, you spent a couple years in the Sahel. And I know you've talked about it a little bit before, but I wonder about how you kind of work around the idea of, you know, bringing this music from the Sahel, from Africa, and presenting it to what you understand is going to be essentially like a Western, like white audience.
Well, you know, I think when I started Sahel Sounds, you know, it started as a blog, and it was in 2008, and the idea of the blog was to really just have a place to showcase what I was interested in, which was meeting musicians and hearing their stories and listening to music. And I wanted a way to share that, you know, and I think that it was a very, you know, personal journey, and the journey for me was always one of discovery. It was seeing something that you don't know anything about in it, and it starts with exoticism. You know, it starts with this thing that you don't understand, that shocks you, and that you want to learn more. And I think the process that I would go through is like, well, deconstructing that, you know, starting in a place of other and then exoticizing something, and then breaking that down and understanding it. And I think that through interviewing people, through hearing their stories, from learning, right? And I think that's really been at the core of the label as it evolved from a blog to a record label to like artist management. You know, it's always been involved in that exchange, but also that almost like a representation, like being a mediator and being the person who's going to represent that other thing, be it a culture, music, or genre, or story, or whatever, and so there's a balancing act. I've made missteps in it. I've never figured out exactly how to land, but I think my main philosophy behind it is to just tread carefully, tread with respect, and try to find a way to let as much of the voice of the artist lead, and whereas at the same time, opening up that pathway to let people in.
So do you feel like that, with the rise in prominence that the label has gained, I feel like you guys are featured a lot on Bandcamp and stuff. Do you feel like your priorities shifting at all now when you think about what you want to come out with next or who you want to push?
Well, I mean, it's certainly as we became more of a label, right? Then we had more stakeholders, which were really the artists, right? And an artist their objective might be different for most artists, but being where they are in what part of the world, this is the opportunity for them to make money, transformative money, money that's going to not only change their life, but their family's life. It could be generational money that they can make from this work. So, there's another level of capitalism then that can pull you in different directions, right? And so working with the bands, it's I always want to honor their wishes too. In terms of what do we focus on or what artists we release, I still think that the label, my philosophy has always been with the label that I don't want to work with artists who are already established. There's also an element for me it's more fun to focus on something that isn't going to be done by another label. Numero Group recently just put out a Lijadu Sisters record, and they've done some reissues of 70s rail band. We could do that stuff, but I'm not interested in it because I know somebody else is going to do that. I'm more interested in finding the artist that nobody wants to take a chance on. Nobody's interested in them. Maybe the music's too far left field. Maybe they're too hard to get to or too inaccessible. And we have such our core fan base will they allow us to do that. They're hey, we're open to this, and that's what pushes me to choose projects that are more challenging. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely feel that with tell me if I'm saying it, wrong, but there was the record that came out in I think 2020. It was Music Hauka.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was that's something I've never heard anything like that before. And there is definitely a bit of that exoticism that you were saying where it's this is totally outside of my realm, and it almost feels it almost feels to call it just a spiritual album feels a little bit maybe reductive, or it sounds like I'm kind of just projecting my own ideals onto it. But yeah, I mean, that is really cool to hear, and I love something I love about the label is how many different sounds you get, you throw in. And so I mean, I was also just curious about how, because you've told me before that you have a lot of music that you're sitting on, and it's just a matter of deciding what to put out. So beyond finding a new voice, is there anything else that kind of goes into that decision?
just time, just time to invest in projects. And, you know, I mean, if in another way, I mean, these projects don't really make a lot of money for the exception of like, if you hit onto something like Etran, where it's like, they're a touring band and and it's a sound that a lot of people will get into. You know, on some other records, like we did a Babsi Konate Fruity Loops hip-hop album from Gao, Mali from, you know, 2008. It's not really something that's gonna like hit throughout the world, and that being said, you know, it's still like something that I felt compelled to do, but these projects don't, you know, it's really just a question of time. How much time do I have in my day, amongst all the other life things to put into these projects? Yeah.
So do you feel like working with Etran, do you feel like that is a smoother, like easier experience than, you know, trying to like onboard a new artist onto the label? Or I don't know, you could just explain yourself.
Yeah, well, I think Etran stands out because they're a live gigging band, right? And anytime that you work with an artist who already plays shows at home and they're constantly playing, it's not a reissue like project from the archives. It's not a producer who makes beats at home. It's a gigging active band. That's always going to be a lot easier to translate into something to a wider audience. You know, they'll constantly send videos of performances. The videos are visual, they're dynamic, they're interesting, right? And if you do have the opportunity to do a tour, you don't really have to create something, a live act. You just say, hey, that wedding you do for 3 hours, do that fucking thing for like 65 minutes here, and we're good. Like, just don't change anything and just do that. And they're like, hell yeah, we can do that. We do it all the time, you know. And it's so that in that sense, yeah, it's a lot easier. Yeah.
So when they recorded 100% Saharan guitar, did they have like new equipment and everything from it, like from, I don't know, the money they made from their last album?
Yeah, but we recorded that album here in a studio. Oh. Yeah, we recorded that in a studio, and that was actually a different process for us because we were able to, you know, do the tracking. So we spent 2 days in a studio and just laid down the tracks, and then I had them in LA, go into a studio for a couple days, and just work on the tracks, you know, add overdubs, listen to them, edit them. And so we could get like, kind of tap into like the creative process collaboratively of like building an album, and just see like what ideas come out from that.
I know this is more maybe a question for the band, but I guess since you were there, did they have, with that creative freedom, did you notice them starting to like experiment more, or like just taking advantage of that process?
Well, yeah, and I think what helped is having a studio space with like a lot of stuff just lying around. So we grabbed some shakers, there was like a giant drum, they added some like huge kicks to it, and there was a Moog that got played at one point. It didn't make it into the album because it was fucking nuts, but yeah. But I think like now we're planning another album, and that was really the first foray into like a studio production. They had done stuff back home, but on really like micro studios, and so now we're planning a studio album, but in Algeria, in southern Algeria, and we're actually planning things out. Like we want to record this song with 2 acoustic guitars, and then we're gonna find some like backup singers from to do this part, and then for this song we're going to do an electric song, we're going to add a distortion pedal, so we can actually plan out the recording session before we do it, and now building on that experience we can actually do that, whereas before it would have been, too hypothetical.
Yeah.
And not just for them, but for me too. Like I don't. Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, I think we've gotten pretty good. Do you have anything you want to say, Mario?
I got one question or two. Just any advice you'd give someone who is trying to like start a label or bring bands in, or just advice you would give your younger self or whatever? What do you have?
Yeah. Well, I think if you're working in the music industry, like don't like let anybody tell you that you can't do something. Just fucking do it. Like people will try to tell you like there's a right way to do it, and everybody does that. I think like I had a lot of coming up like doubts about like, what's the right way to go about this, and the times that I was really able to push things forward when were like, well, you know what, I want to put something out, I want to do it now, I don't want to wait. I'm going to make a cassette tape, I'm going to Xerox it, I'm going to put it out, and move quickly. I think the best thing is if you have an idea, like just roll with it and do it quick and just put it out there into the world. It doesn't cost you anything now to really do that. I think there's a good time. There's a lot of resources now to be able to just really engage in like DIY production and distribution. So, yeah.
I guess this might be too personal a question or anything, but how about like bringing bands in? What's the legal aspect and how do you deal with all that? Is it just visas or?
Yeah, for the aspect of touring, I mean, that is something where it is a path like that you do have to. I guess it is harder to DIY like getting visas, but there are resources. Covey Law is what everybody uses. It's a law firm for international artists, and almost every artist I know uses somebody, either them or someone like that, to do all the visa prep work. But everything else, like booking shows, that you can do it. You can do it through your network. You can figure that out. And if anybody ever does have questions about this stuff, I mean, they're more than welcome to hit me up about it. So
where do they hit you up?
Social media's website.
Yeah, everywhere. Yeah. Sahel Sounds. I don't even know if our website is active right now, but definitely.
Basically links to your Bandcamp.
Yeah. Bandcamp, Instagram. Yeah.
How do you? Last one. How do you maintain like the whole digital and social media aspect for the label? Do you try playing that a lot, or do you just let the music speak for itself?
Well, our Instagram. So I have a few people that work with me, and our social media now is mostly run by Andra, who's based in Romania. And our philosophy with the social media is to really, like Sahel Sounds, we do promote our work on it, but we also want it to be what like the blog was, which is just a portal for discovery. So if we find other videos on YouTube or through our WhatsApp network, if somebody sends us something, we aim to like post that stuff up and credit it back to the artist, but just really to be a place to pass on media and to share like regional music from the Sahel. Because if we only focused on the output of our label, that would be like just a tiny little percentage of what's out there. And I don't think we don't want to play that game of like, oh, we're the Sahel. Like, we're not, like, at all. Like, don't get it confused. This is like a curated selection of what I happen to think is interesting or that's in my network that caught my eye. But there's so much more out there, and that goes for everywhere in the world. So, yeah.
All right, I think we're closing it. Do you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so this has been Christopher Kirkley, Sahel Sounds. Personally, I mean, we've already met before, but, speaking from a personal point of view, I think Sahel Sounds is one of the coolest sources of music in the online world, which I think, you know, it does feel like a very online kind of thing. It's a very 21st century thing, but nonetheless, I'm happy that you were able to come out here, you know, represent, and I really, really super appreciate you giving us the time to speak. So yeah.
Of course, thank you so much.
Yeah. All right, dude. We did it. Wait, let's get wait, no, yeah. Can we do shaking?
Yeah.
All right. There we go. There you go. Yeah. Perfect. Thanks, man.
We're live inside of Argus now. I give Argus a 7, a light 7 out of 10 on a bar rating. Little pricey, little hipstery, maybe not grimy enough, but we're out here. Great show. I would definitely give the show a 10 out of 10. I've had holy moments, deep religious moments in these sets. And yeah, everyone loves it. I think the vibes in here are definitely a 10 out of 10 too. Sold out show. I'm happy the bands get some money for tonight. And yeah, support local music.
And don't just support local music, support international music, bro. Yeah. That's what they don't tell you. No, dude, tonight, like, bro, I don't know if you can hear it outside, but they're melting everyone's faces off right now. It's been really, like, a really, really great show. Crazy energy. They got white people doing moves they never knew they could do before. You know what I'm saying? They're awakening something. They're awakening something in the people, bro. Okay? So, I mean, listen, dude, if you're watching this and they're in your town, go see it. And if you're watching this 100 years from now, I'm sorry that you missed it, bro. Because it's really like, this band is something else. I really loved it. So, shout out to Christopher. Shout out to Etran. Shout out to Bearbox, the one and only. Yeah, dude. I have nothing else to say. I love you. If you watched this far, I'm so happy that you made it this far, dude. So, yeah. I ain't got nothing else to say, bro.